The Raiders finally get a W. They snapped their 10-game losing streak, and many a Raider Nation believe that they actually lost. We'll talk about both sides of it on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for Monday, December 23rd, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you, whether you're catching us wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out on YouTube. Either way, we definitely appreciate that, whether you're listening to us for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 25 minutes, or 45 minutes. It is awesome. The show continues to grow each and every day. And again, that's by way of wherever you find your favorite podcast or by the YouTube page. If you are checking us out on YouTube, that's because of the work of my man Ari, who's behind the scenes, is fantastic. Make sure that we're looking good and sounding good each and every day. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, you can. We got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. And please believe we got plenty of feedback to get to in segment number 3. A lot of mixed feelings as the Raiders come out of week 16 with a victory, snapping their 10-game losing streak as they win 19-14 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll close out the show with your calls and texts. Segment number 2, we'll talk about the players. We'll talk about the coaches. We'll talk about the owner and their feeling on the victory on Sunday and everything that I was able to witness post-game at Allegiant Stadium. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, which after a game day, it's always just a recap of what we saw in that game. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel, and it's never too late to get a big return on FanDuel, even close to the end of the season, and especially around the playoffs. That's when it's go time. New customers could place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com to get started today. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show. And really, I wanted to dedicate, I just don't have enough time, I wanted to dedicate a whole segment or a good 5-6 minute chunk to the passing of one of my heroes, Ricky Henderson, my favorite athlete of all time. The reason why I always liked the number 24, obviously Charles Woodson wore that number with the Raiders, and that was a big draw to it as well. But Ricky was my guy. Ricky was my original guy, born December 25th, 1958, and passed away Friday night. That was December 20th, 2024. And it's really a shame his birthday is right around the corner, coming up on Christmas, and didn't get there. So passed away at the age of 65. Something that, I found out about late Friday night. I started making calls, and people that I don't call all the time, all of a sudden they're getting calls from me at like 10:30. I didn't want to believe it. It wasn't confirmed on Friday night, wasn't able to confirm it Friday night, so really didn't speak on it too much until I knew that it was confirmed, which was basically about Saturday afternoon, almost late afternoon on Saturday, which is very unfortunate. But I really don't have a whole lot of time to deep dive into Ricky Henderson. Just know that, as my good friend Anna said when she sent me a text on Saturday, we were going back and forth on Ricky. She said, man, Oakland really doesn't have its identity anymore. No Raiders, no Warriors, no A's, no Ricky. And I thought that was the best way to word it, best way to put it. And I know that on all my radio shows, I'm definitely going to talk about Ricky from what I do today on ESPN from 7 a.m. to noon Pacific time. I definitely will talk about Ricky multiple times on my Raider Nation Radio 920 show. I'll talk about Ricky multiple times. Just really, man, that one hit me hard. It really did, because, again, that's my guy, Ricky Henderson, and I can go on and on and on about him, but I do need to get into some Raider conversation, especially following the victory that they had on Sunday. They definitely deserved that. 19-14, they snapped their 10-game losing streak, and, again, I know a lot of Raider Nation's not happy about the win, but I'll tell you right now, and we'll talk about it more in segment number 2, the players, the coaches, even the owner were very happy about the win. Aiden O'Connell, he makes his return to action, 24 for 38, 257 yards. And Brock Bowers, one of the guys that I said I was going to be focusing on Sunday. Yeah, he arrived. He arrived with a purpose. They fed him early and often, 11 catches for 99 yards. He's having a phenomenal season, obviously. Matter of fact, he has 1,067 receiving yards this season, joining Pro Football Hall of Famer Mike Ditka with 1,076 receiving yards in 1961, and Kyle Pitts with 1,026 in 2021 as the only rookie tight ends all time with 1,000+ receiving yards, and he's the third tight end all time with 4 games of 10 or more receptions in a season, joining Zach Ertz, who did it 5 times in 2018, and Evan Ingram 4 times in 2023. With Jacksonville, Bowers is also the second rookie in NFL history of 4 games with 10 or more receptions, joining Odell Beckham Jr. 4 games in 2014. with the New York Giants. He just had an absolute monster day, has 101 total catches on the season, tied with Anquan Bolden in 2003 for the third most receptions by a rookie in NFL history. Malik Neighbors of the Giants is having a phenomenal season as well. He's got 97, past Michael Thomas, who had 92 in 2016, for the fifth most receptions by a rookie all time. And the record, Puka Nacua, 105 in 2023. Jalen Waddle had 104 in 2021. Puka Nacua's record is going to get broke, right? Brock Bowers has 101 already and still has 2 more games left to go. So he had a phenomenal game. Jacoby Myers only had 2 catches for 41 yards. He's the guy that I'll give you a sneak peek right now. I'll be focused in on a lot on Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. Want to definitely see him get more catches and get more yards. I really hope Jacoby gets to that 1,000-yard mark, something he hasn't had in his career yet, something that I think he deserves, something that he's worked really hard for, and I know it's one of his goals as well. Defensively, Isaiah Palomao, how about this? 2 fumbles forced, right? And the Raiders recovered both of them. It wasn't until the game against Tampa Bay where they hadn't even, recovered a fumble, and now all of a sudden they picked up 2 on Sunday for Jacksonville. Trayvon Merrick, and then Harper had the other one. So, there was 2 fumbles forced by Isaiah Palomao, a guy that I say is always around the ball. Hasn't had a ton of ball production this year since he's been in for Marcus Epps, but really came up big, came up money for the Raiders on Sunday. And then K'Lavon Chaisson, another guy that I wanted to pay attention to, a former Jacksonville Jaguar first-round pick, had a sack, had a pass defense that looked like an interception, but his own guy knocked the ball out of his hands, and he didn't have the ball. He didn't possess it long enough for the officials to say that it was an interception and then a fumble. Instead, it was just an incomplete pass. But Chaisson's getting better and better and looking more comfortable and more comfortable with the silver and black ever since Tom Telesco picked him up off waivers. He now has 4 sacks in 13 games with the Raiders, where he never had even 3 sacks in a single season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's up to 4 with the Raiders. So he's starting to look like a guy that could definitely be a player for the silver and black moving forward. And so that's something to definitely get excited about. If Tom Telesco does decide to re-sign him in the offseason and bring him back, all of a sudden you can imagine him being a running buddy with Max Crosby. You can see him being a running buddy with Tyree Wilson. You can see him being, part of that defensive line that will have a healthy Christian Wilkins. Maybe Adam Butler comes back. Maybe John Jacobs comes back. Maybe they put some more beef inside in the interior of that defensive line. But you can see him being a big-time playmaker on the outside across from Max Crosby. So that is something to get excited about. And, ultimately the game wasn't the most easy on the eyes. It wasn't like the Raiders went out and had a dominating performance, dominating win. They actually looked like they should have probably blown them out. They just weren't able to generate anything, especially when the defense was coming up with turnovers and getting the ball in the short field. They weren't able to take advantage of that. I mean, they honestly, by right, should have blown out the Jaguars. They didn't. They found a way to get a victory at the end because Jacksonville even took the lead for a quick minute. All of a sudden, it looked like, whoa, the Raiders are going to lose this one, right? You see Daniel Carlson miss a field goal, and then immediately after that, and that's always what happens, immediately after you have an opportunity to take advantage of something and you don't do it, the other team always does take advantage. The Raiders missed their field goal. It was a short one for Daniel Carlson. He misses that, and then immediately Mac Jones hits Brian Thomas Jr., who's a fantastic rookie, on a go route, beating Jack Jones and everyone else on that Raiders defense. It was a miscommunication, but Jack Jones ultimately was the guy on the wrong end of that, and there's probably a reason why he left the locker room very quickly following the game. Before the locker room was even opened up for the media, Jack Jones was already on his way out of there. But the Raiders, to their credit, find a way to get down the field, get into the end zone, and score, and win the game 19-14, and improve their overall record to 3-12. So for those that are focused in on where that keeps the Raiders as far as their draft, who is focused on basically losing every game, they go from being top 2 in the draft to number 6 in the draft. As it stands right now, the Giants, Pats, the Jaguars, the Browns, the Titans are all in front of the Raiders, and then the Raiders are right behind the Titans. The good thing for the Silver and Black is the Titans and the Jaguars still play each other, so they'll improve somewhere along the line with 2 games left to go. But again, that was not the focus of the players. That was not the focus of the coach, any of the coaches, and it definitely was not the focus of the owner, Mark Davis. How do I know that? Well, I'll tell you about it coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, which is Prize Picks. And if you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, whether it's football, basketball, or any other favorite sport. Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your pick hits, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So you could be looking at Jared Goff to go off, or maybe Saquon Barkley, who's trying to break all-time records. You want to be able to talk about a historical season. Saquon Barkley is having that. So it's really simple. You can challenge yourself, and you can challenge your friends. Right now, what you have to do is download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. The Raiders now sit there at 3-12. Their draft position for April's draft goes from being top 2 to, well, around number 6 at this stage of the game, with a couple games left to be played. So as I've mentioned multiple times, that's subject to change, and it will. And who knows what it's going to actually look like when it's all said and done. They won't have the number 1 spot. The Giants will most likely own that if they lose out, which I do believe they'll lose their final 2 games of the season, especially that last one when they're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. But with that being said, the draft pick is going to have to worry about itself, right? I know a lot of Raider fans were upset. I had a lot of people texting me and tweeting at me during the game and said, the Raiders are going to win this game, aren't they? They can't even tank right. Well, that's where I want to just go ahead and speak specifically on. And I know, like I've said before, I'm not going to ever judge anyone for what they're rooting for. If you're a Raider fan, you've been a Raider fan for a long time, and you want them to lose out so they can improve their draft stock, that is your right. I'm not mad at that at all. If you're a fan like me who don't ever want to root for a loss, but you understand the end result if they do lose, right? Hey, if they lose, okay, that's cool, right? Because there's something else that's greater coming down the pipeline. That's where I stand. And then there's some that just don't care and just want to win. And if they lose, then it's the worst thing in the world. Where at this stage of the game, you know that it necessarily isn't the worst thing in the world, because there are, the draft pick does actually mean something. But I can tell you, off top, when we walked into that locker room, and I've said this so many times, that players, coaches, they don't care about the draft pick. None of them are guaranteed. Like Antonio Pierce, he's not guaranteed to be back in 2025. He's not. So what does he care about when the Raiders are going to draft, right? Those players in the locker room, the 47 guys or 48 guys that suited up on Sunday, they're not all guaranteed to be back. Just about none of them are guaranteed to be back. Max will be back, right? I mean, Brock Bowers will be back. Some of the standouts will be back, right? But that's a handful of guys, and you're looking at a whole locker room full of dudes. They don't care about losing games. They don't care about, what draft position is going to be. They're out there. This is like a resume builder. I say it all the time, and I said it all the time especially when I was back at ESPN Central Texas, that anytime the Super Bowl would come up and it would be the week of Radio Row, and I knew I was going to go there, I would always say, this is my job fair. And what I meant by that is that there's so many eyes going to be watching, so many ears are going to be listening to what we're doing and seeing what we're doing, and someone might catch, I might catch someone's attention. Oh, man, that guy, he's a hustler, man. That guy's working. He's here. He's there. He's doing all this. Oh, he's putting on a show. He's hosting another show. Man, that's the kind of guy I want on my team. So I always looked at that as my best job fair. I was going to be in front of all these different potential employers, and all I had to do was go out there and put in a great week of work. Well, fast forward to that to the NFL, and these players, obviously they're playing for a lot more money than I'm ever going to make in radio, right? But that's what they're doing. These games are all their best resume builder, right? When these guys go out there and put something on film, they don't want to put on film that they laid a tackle. They don't want to put on film that they lacked effort. They don't want to put on film that, they weren't hustling or it looked like that they were just nonchalant and just trying to get through it, or that they made plans for vacation, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. If that's on film, guess what? That follows you around. It doesn't matter if your team is 3-12. It doesn't matter if you're 12-3. Whatever you put on film is who you are. And that goes for the coaches as well. If AP goes out there and stinks it up as a coach, and many people think he stunk it up as a coach anyway this year, right? If he goes out there and just stinks it up and it's like, man, what is he doing? It looks like he's trying to lose. Guess what? That just ruins his chance to be a coach, any coach, at any other time, right? I mean, he's not guaranteed to be back with the Raiders, and he's not guaranteed to get a coaching job anywhere else, right? And we know that, especially Antonio Pierce, he's already been, I don't want to say banned from college, but, he's got a show cause for many years in college, so it's not like he can return to the college game and be a coach. That's not going to work. So he's got to do the very best that he can. All these coaches are also on audition. So when the game is over, and, obviously there's mixed feelings and people are in the elevator talking about, well, was that a good win? Was that a bad win? What was that? And I think most people agreed that it was probably a bad win. One, because it wasn't dominating like it should have been a dominating win over the Jaguars. But then two, ultimately, it hurt the draft stock. Again, I mentioned it at the end of segment number 1. The Giants are number 1 spot. The Patriots are number 2 spot. The Jags were at number 3 right now. The Browns at 4, the Titans at 5, and the Raiders at 6. That's according to ESPN, which has it from the NFL. I know Tankathon has it a little bit differently. The Raiders are still at the number 6 spot, but a couple of the teams are different. I believe the Browns are 5 and the Titans might be 4, something like that. It's just switched up a little bit. But regardless, the Raiders are sitting there at 6, and those are all the teams. So the Giants need a quarterback. The Patriots do not. The Jaguars do not. The Browns do, and the Titans do. So how are the Raiders going to get their quarterback? And I'll tell you, by the reaction in the locker room, especially from the owner, Mark Davis, I don't think it even matters. I don't think it matters where they pick. I don't think Mark Davis gave one you-know-what about the Raiders losing that game. He was in that locker room, and I've been in the locker room every single game after the season, every home game after the game. I've been in the locker room interviewing the players, talking to the players, getting the vibe, and he has never been in the locker room when we're allowed in. He's always in there, but he's never in there when we're allowed in there. This man was ear to ear smile. He was high-fiving. He was shaking guys' hands. He went to every single locker, no joke, Raider Nation, every single locker and personally greeted every single player in that locker, right? And I wanted to just kind of say, ask him a question or two off the record, but he was so busy just moving from guy to guy to guy to guy. Like, he was so happy and celebrating, and hey man, it's about time we got that W. I'm so happy for you guys. Like, he was genuinely celebrating them. The players were in there having a good time. Music was cranked up when we first walked in. They had to lower it after we got in because, we were trying to do interviews and the music would overpowered us. But that they're in there, they're dancing, everyone's having a good time. Like, literally, as the media, it was probably about 10 or 15 of us, we stood back and watched, wearing, multiple defensive linemen. You got the big dudes in there. They're up there dancing. They're having a good time. Everyone was celebrating. So you could tell that was a huge relief, a huge weight and burden off their shoulders that they picked up a victory. They have been starving for victories. They have been trying to win each and every game. As many people, Jacoby Myers said, hey, man, we go out and try to win every game. Obviously, it hasn't happened, but we try to. So, you can look at it. You could be angry. You could be upset. But I promise you the one thing, and I told many multiple media members in the locker room, I said, look, regardless of how you feel what the Raiders did by winning the game, if that was a good or bad move, the owner being in the locker room like he is celebrating tells me it was a good thing. Right? Tells me the owner's not angry that the Raiders won. And if the owner ain't angry, the guy who's signing the checks ain't angry, that's where you have to go with. And I understand. that, everyone who's angry is just angry because you want to get that franchise quarterback. Well, as Antonio Pierce was asked about that draft spot in his post-game presser, he said, ask Tom Telesco. You know what that means? That's a Tom Telesco thing. Figure it out. Antonio Pierce's job is not to put the Raiders in a good position for a draft pick. Antonio Pierce's job is to win games. Clearly, he has not done enough of that this season, right? It's not guaranteed that he's coming back in 2025. Matter of fact, most people believe that he's not coming back in 2025. So, his job is to go out there, fire up the team, get them ready, get them motivated to play, and put their best foot forward. And that's exactly what they did. And was it dominating? Should it have been dominating? Absolutely. It was not a dominating win, but they still found a way to get a dub. And, I know nobody's going to think about that when it's April and then be like, man, that victory over the Jaguars sure didn't matter. Like, most people are probably going to be upset, especially if you're not able to come away with the quarterback that you want, right? I'm a Shador guy. I've said that many times. He's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick, but that's up to Tom Telesco now. So you got to figure it out, right? If at the end of the season, the Raiders are in the 3 or 4 hole and they're not going to get their guy and they want their guy, then they got to do what it takes to go get him. It's just that simple. You've got to do what it takes to get there. So the path to getting there would probably been easier if they just lost out. But I could promise you, Raider Nation, for those dudes in the locker room, just put yourself in their shoes real quick. Again, you could be angry later on. You could be mad that they won later on. But put yourself in those shoes. Act like you're on the gridiron and you put your body on the line each and every week and you've lost 10 in a row. Think about the outside world saying, yeah, you just need to lose the last 3. Just go ahead and finish the season on a 13-game losing streak. Think about that. Think if that was you on the field. That's not what you want. I guarantee that's not what I would want. If I was out there and I was ever blessed to be in that position, that would be the last thing I'd want is to be on a losing streak like that. I'm giving everything I got and then some to try to win that game. And that's what those players were doing. That's what those coaches were doing. And it shows like the owner was very happy that they got that W. Promise you, again, from being in the locker room, standing next to Mark Davis, watching him go locker to locker to locker to locker, celebrating all those players, that told me all I needed to know. That was the happiest I've seen Mark Davis in a very long time. You could say it's team franchise malpractice. You could say whatever you want, but he's the owner. He was happy. He wanted nothing more than that team to get a win, and they got a win. So again, Tom Telesco gets paid a lot of money to be the GM of the team, right? The front office guys get paid a lot of money to make front office decisions. They'll figure it out, right? Jason Horowitz said it to me best a couple weeks ago. He said, Q, the draft pick will work itself out. The draft pick will work itself out at some point. What matters is those players in the locker room doing everything they can to put their best foot forward. So they're never going to try to tank. Now, the front office, they can put them in a position where they can say, hey, we don't want to see Aiden O'Connell the rest of the year. We want to see Carter Bradley. They're not going to do that because they're still evaluating Aiden O'Connell, right, who many people believe he could be the starting quarterback. And you know what? If they can't get their guy, he might end up being the starting quarterback in 2025. We don't know if they can't go get their guy. And he might start some of the season even if they do get their guy, right? So there's so many different things that can happen. Just be in the moment. And the only thing I'll say is, like I said, you could be angry about them winning and you could be angry about them slipping in the draft order, but be happy for those dudes in the locker room that do it. They get after it every single day. They work their tail off Monday through Saturday just to get on the field on Sunday to be able to play that game. That's their reward, is being able to play the game. If you only knew everything that all those players go through on the daily just to put their body in position to go out there and play, you wouldn't root for them to lose, and you wouldn't ask them to go out there and lose on purpose either. They're not going to do that. But that's what I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts will close out the show. We'll do that next, 707-654-4693. Before we get there, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. And you know, the NFL playoffs are almost here. It is not too late to get into the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It's almost like having a Friday every day, right? What do we say on Friday? Finish off strong. Yeah, it's like having a Friday every day. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. You could bet on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score. It is a thrilling, fun ride. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Right now, visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts right off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with C Money from Houston, H-Town. He's calling to talk about the win the Raiders had on Sunday versus the Jaguars. Give his thoughts. Here he is, C Money from H-Town.
Yo, Q, it's C Money from Houston. Hey, man, I just want to call after that exciting win, man. I know a lot of fans are kind of wanting us to tank right now, but I will take a win, especially this season, man. And that's what I wanted to call about is, you know, I see everybody on social media, kind of a lot of, you know, Raiders supposed fan pages saying, oh, man, we botched the tank. Oh, man, we can't even tank right. But I think it's for the best to get a win, right? You obviously want to draft pick, but you also want to establish a culture because I think that's what leads to wins is a winning culture. So I think if you're able to win.
Thanks for the call, C Money. And yeah, I'll tell you, man, nobody in that locker room, as I mentioned in segment number 2, coaches, players, anything, none of them gave a damn about a draft pick. They had no interest in losing that game. All they wanted to do was win. Again, I mean, the celebration, especially after losing on Monday to the Falcons and the way that the locker room felt with all the special teams mistakes that they made, to go into that locker room and for them to be as excited as they were, it was cool. It was really cool to see that and to see them have that moment and not just be like, oh, here we go again, another loss, 11 in a row. So who knows what they'll do with the rest of the season. They very well could lose it on a 2-game losing streak. They very well could win the next 2 games of the season. I don't know. But for that moment, for that time, for them, I was very happy for them. Up next, got a text from Raider Matt in Orange County. Said, Q, this win does not feel good at all. Put up 19 points against one of the worst defenses in the NFL and then dropped down to the number 6 pick. AP beat yet another backup quarterback and is chanting Raiders like we did something good. We beat a really bad team with the backup quarterback, which ultimately hurts the franchise. Lucky for us, the Jags and the Titans play, so we'll move up a spot for that. We really need to get lucky in order to get a quarterback. Otherwise, it's Aiden O'Connell, a.k.a. Derek Carr 2.0. Just good enough to get our hopes up and keep us out of a top quarterback pick, but not good enough to win meaningful games. Being a Raider fan is hard. That's Raider Matt in Orange County, and thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. And, yeah, I mean, look, you're right. The Jags and the Titans do play, so the Raiders will move up there. Look, AP has lost to backup quarterbacks. I mean, remember when the Carolina Panthers came into Allegiant Stadium week 3 and they sliced up the Raiders like it was a hot knife going through butter? It was easy. Remember they had Andy Dalton. I know he was a veteran, but he just got off the bench, and the Raiders lost that game, right? And it wasn't even close. So I don't care who they're out there facing. You take it, if you can get a win, you get a win when you can. And it wasn't a dominating performance. It should have been a dominating performance. The way that the defense handled their business, the offense just wasn't able to click like it should. I believe they only had as a team 60-something yards rushing. So, and Amir Abdullah told us that in the locker room. He said, man, when the defense comes up with turnovers, we've got to do something with it. And we didn't. So, yeah, they left points out there. It really should have been a dominating performance, and it wasn't. But I do give the defense a lot of credit. They made some really good plays and, came up with 2 turnovers, caused 2 fumbles, and recovered both of them, and got to the quarterback as well. So I'll give him credit for that. And even Aiden O'Connell, to his credit, he made some plays even with his legs. Ran the ball a little bit, scrambled out of trouble, threw a pass up to Amir Abdullah, and it was really just a prayer, and Amir just made a hell of a play. But, I mean, you could tell the effort that was there. I mean, it wasn't like, okay, here comes pressure, let me just fold. I mean, look, Aiden O'Connell's trying to get it, right? He's trying to prove that he's the franchise quarterback. Now, I don't believe that he's a franchise quarterback, and I'm sure that many of Raider Nation doesn't, and clearly you don't believe he's a franchise quarterback, but he's out there trying to prove something. He's out there trying to prove what he can do as a starting quarterback, and he very well might have to be the starting quarterback in 2025. Maybe not for the whole season, but he probably will have to start for some period of time next season as well. But thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Mr. Raider in the 209, calling to talk about the win and also what maybe the Raiders can do if the draft order stays where it is with them picking around number 6. Here he is, Mr. Raider, out the 209.
Yo, what up, Q? It's Mr. Raider 209, calling out of Stockton. First-time caller. Just wanted to call about the win today with the Raiders. Man, I don't even know how to feel right now. I never want to see the Raiders lose, but to me it just didn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things to win. When you're trying to build the football team and stay in contention to get one of these top young quarterbacks. So I just feel like the win today just kind of stung a little, even though it's always good to see the silver and black get a dub. But man, I don't know. It's just, like I said, now it's looking more and more like they're going to be out of the running for either Ward or Sanders. But with that being said, I wanted to get your opinion on something, maybe see what you think. I was thinking of a scenario that could play out now at the 6th spot if it stays the way it is. What if the Raiders go out and draft Ashton Genty, I believe, from the running back at the 6th spot, and then maybe try to get Dylan Gabriel from Oregon in like the 2nd, maybe 3rd round, and then during the free agency, maybe go out and try to add like a Kirk Cousins or a Sam Darnold for Dylan Gabriel to sit behind for a year or so. Anyway, just a little food for thought. Just want to see what your take on that was, what you think about that scenario that could possibly play out now. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that to you and yours, you and your loved ones, and go Raiders, Raider Nation, baby, let's go.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. And yeah, if the Raiders pick around 6 or so, I would say that you probably go with like the best offensive lineman, maybe the best defensive lineman. If a top corner is there, maybe you go get him. I don't think that you go get a running back, even though Ashton Genty is fantastic. I don't think you could go get him in the top 6, especially in this draft. It's a very deep draft with running backs. Again, the name I keep wanting to throw out there is Devin Neal from Kansas. That would be a dude that I'm very interested in. Cam Scatterboo out of Arizona State. You'll see him in the playoffs. He's another guy I'm really interested in. But, I don't think you take a running back, especially in a deep draft like that, in the top 12. I think that, or top 12, top 6, right? Just because I feel like that the Raiders have more needs than just a running back. I think they need a really good running back, and I believe that Genty is kind of pegged or mocked right now to go around 12 or 13, probably to the Dallas Cowboys, who definitely need him. But I don't think that he's going to go top 10. We'll see. As far as the quarterbacks go, I'm not really interested in Sam Darnold. He's going to cost a lot of money, and he wants to be the long-term guy. If the Raiders were to bring in a veteran, I think he has to understand he's a short-term dude. I can see maybe Kirk Cousins on a Russell Wilson type deal, and he'll be a little bit healthier from that torn Achilles that he suffered when he was in Minnesota. So maybe that's an option. But I'm not really interested in Sam Darnold unless they bring Kevin O'Connell with them. And obviously that's not going to happen. But he's going to want big money. And I think that the end goal is having a quarterback that's a young franchise guy as opposed to a big money, high price free agent. I just don't think that that's really going to be the direction that the team wants to go. But we'll see, right? I mean, it's a few weeks away, and it'll be officially the Raiders offseason, and there'll be a lot of moving and shaking going on, and the picture will start to become a lot more clearer in the next few weeks. So thanks so much for that call. Do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Seth in New Mexico. He says, "Hey, Q, it's Seth from New Mexico. I'll be there. I will be the very few people that will be happy for the Raiders win today. But seeing those guys still fight while the whole season is lost still shows my respect for them and definitely needed for this after losing so many games as they did this year. People will definitely be angry about the win, especially with it knocking us out of the top 2 spot. But if these guys didn't fight as they did all season, we probably wouldn't have seen many flashes for the people fighting for their job next year and definitely would not have a rookie making a statement in the NFL and a generational talent. Till next time, Q, just win, baby." Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Right there. Right? I mean, that's simple as that. These guys have really fought all year long. The one game that I say, the effort was lacking was the Carolina game, the week 3. That Monday night game against the Falcons, it was just a weird feel. It wasn't necessarily that they didn't try hard. It just was a weird vibe in the building. And just something didn't seem right about it. But, yeah, that's the one thing I can say these dudes have done all year long. And that's why I'm happy for them for getting that victory, is because they have been working and scratching and clawing. And sometimes you just want to see the ball go through the rim, right? You want to see that the fruits of your labor pay off. You just want to get rewarded with a win, even if it's only one, even if it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. You're not going to the playoffs, right? But it's not meaningless to them. It may be meaningless to me and you, right? And I'm not talking about you, Seth. I just mean like Raider Nation in general. The win may be meaningless to you. It's not meaningless to them. Nothing that they put on wax is meaningless to them, because somebody is paying attention, someone is evaluating, someone is trying to see who they move forward with, who they let move on, and what they need to do to fill this void and fill up this team's roster for next year. So nothing that they do, nothing that's on film is ever worthless for these players and coaches. And again, I know the Raider Nation, a lot of you are not going to want to hear that. A lot of you are going to probably say I'm crazy for saying that. That's fine. I'll own that. But that's just the reality of it. It's talking to all the players that I talked to, seeing the owner like I saw the owner, I know that nothing that they do is meaningless. And that win on Sunday was definitely not meaningless to them. We'll take one more call. How about this one from Proto from Vancouver? He's calling to talk about AP not doing his job correctly on Sunday versus the Jaguars. Here's Proto from Vancouver.
Hey, yo, Q, it's your boy, Proto from Vancouver. So I'm going to crash out just a little bit here, but hear me out. AP failed tonight. He was supposed to lose. That was the job. He was supposed to lose because we want first overall pick, not second, not third, and definitely not sixth. We want first. He was supposed to lose. And if you watch the game, he knew he was supposed to lose. He just didn't do it. So, crashing a little bit here. I don't think AP is going to come back next year. If he does not get the first overall pick, he's not going to come back next year. I'm going to guarantee you that. If he does not get us in a place to get a quarterback without giving up any draft picks, Mark Davis will not bring him back. I guarantee it.
Proto, thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate you. I do. I honestly do. I just got to ask, who gave AP the assignment that he was supposed to lose, right? I watched the game. You mentioned if you watched the game, you saw that AP knew he was supposed to lose. I watched the game. I was at the game. Who gave the orders? I never once saw any moment where it looked like someone was giving instructions to AP to lose, ever. I don't. And look, respectfully, I'm disagreeing with you. So if you have that moment, please let me know. Please call back or text in or whatever the case may be. It's 707-654-4693. Let me know who gave the orders, because I'll tell you what, the players never got the message. Don't go out there and try to win. They gave everything that they had. I don't believe the owner gave the message, don't win, because that is exactly opposite from what I saw in the locker room. And I know anyone could watch the game, but everyone's not privy to the locker room. I'm one of the few that's blessed to be in that position where I can go in there, and when I see the owner, when I see Mark Davis, when I see that white Raiders jacket, right? When I see that big smile ear to ear and him shaking every single person's hand with that smile, telling them congratulations, and the player looking back with that look in their eye, right? Like they just got a bonus or something, like the Christmas bonus just came. I didn't see anyone that said, don't win. Your job is to not win. I didn't see that. I don't believe that that's assignment that that might have been your assignment. Might have been the assignment that you wanted to execute, and that's fine. I said it before. However you choose to root for the team, whether you root for them to lose every game or you want them to win every game, is fine. That's your right, right? I can't tell you how to fan. I can't tell a fan how to fan. All I can tell you is I didn't see anyone on the Raiders sideline. I didn't see anyone in the Raiders locker room. I didn't see anybody in the press box that had given orders and told AP or anyone else, your job today is to lose. I didn't see anyone. I heard a lot of people talking about that. Saw a lot of the media saying, oh, man, they blew it. I got text messages throughout the course of the game from multiple media members across, the NFL saying, hey, man, the Raiders do know they're supposed to lose, right? Right? I get that, right? The narrative for sure. But just from the player's point of view, the coach's point of view, and the owner, I didn't hear anyone or see anyone who gave that order. So I understand your frustration. I understand a lot of Raider Nation's frustration. That's your right. Again, not going to tell you how to fan and what to choose for. That is out of my pay grade, right? That's above my pay grade. You can do whatever you want to do, but I did not see that from the team. But thank you so much for that call. I do appreciate you. It's a great way to close out the show today. Antonio Pierce will talk around 11 o'clock. I actually won't be there. I'll be on ESPN Radio doing a power shift, 7 to noon Pacific time. So I won't catch up with AP, but sooner rather than later, we'll get some more answers. And, of course, if we get anything good from what he had to say, I'll bring it to the show tomorrow. We'll get more calls and texts. Of course, we'll talk about this more as well. And I do plan on doing a really good, dedication segment. Maybe I'll do it on Christmas, since Christmas would have been Ricky Henderson's 66th birthday. I really do want to make sure I carve out some time for Ricky to give him his proper due. Again, that was just my guy. So RIP to the greatest to ever do it, greatest of all time. He had swag before swag was a thing, right? So we'll talk about him, like I said, probably on Wednesday's show as well. We'll kind of navigate through this week and see how we do over the holidays. But if you don't tune in anymore the rest of the week, have a happy holidays. And if you do tune in the rest of the week, have a happy holidays as well. We'll be back tomorrow. You know how we get down. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.